play opens with a father and mother staring lovingly, standing over their sleeping child. The father speaks, quote, "When he sleeps, endless is our love for our child. Quiet, mouth gaping open, helpless. He reminds us, this is how he will look if he dies." End quote. So, in this opening scene, we're greeted with an image of total serenity, a peaceful, a loving family. But at the same time, the father already makes a reference to death. This is how he will look if he dies. This sudden intrusion, this reminder about death, is really the essence of the story. The child dreams, to a large extent, is about the way mortality and fear and vulnerability hang over our lives. Skipping ahead a bit in the text, the mother also speaks, quote, "May time stop now, at the height of bliss, for nothing better is to come. Let the three of us turn into a still life, so it seems, parents observing a child who dreams." End quote. And so this opening scene is filled with a terrible anxiety about the future, a sense that things are too good now to last. Life can only get worse from here. And there's this desire to stop time, to avoid this frightening, unknown future. Now we hear sounds from offstage, a throng of distraught, dirty men, women, and children, people who are being pursued. They run onto the stage. Among them is a man who's bleeding badly from a wound in his stomach. The bleeding man. "They made a hole in me. How? Pierced. Like a box. Look, I'm dripping on my pants. Running out. Drip drop from the world." End quote. And with this image of the dying man, we have the ultimate juxtaposition to the scene we saw earlier. This is what it looks like. This is the terrible reality of death. The bleeding man continues, quote, 40 years playing the violin, pouring there in a little puddle at my shoes." End quote. In this image, we get the sense of how all life's accomplishments are dissolved in the moment of death. Now, the man falls to his knees. Quote, "Where am I? There, outside. How I poured out, mother. I fell and broke and poured out." He falls to his stomach now. "Ladies and gentlemen, either I was mistaken about the violin, or the mistake is here. Listen, the serious approach to music takes a serious blow here. I'll protest. I'll definitely protest." End quote. This dying man, not unlike Hanoch Levine, the author himself, is someone who has dedicated his life to art, to striving to create something that is beautiful, something transcendent. And in the moment of death, this character is tormented by the question, what was it for? What did it accomplish? The bleeding man wants to protest, but of course, who can he protest to? This desire to protest really captures what existentialist philosophers call the absurd, which is the human tendency to seek out some enduring meaning in our lives, some enduring ultimate value, and that tendency coming into conflict with our inability to find any meaning. Skipping ahead a bit, the bleeding man is now presumed to be dead, and an observer comments, quote, "That's a great man, that dead man. He has gone through the most significant thing. Everything that casts a shadow over our lives. He's free of it now. Light and happy. A great philosopher. He's solved the riddle. He knows something that even King Solomon didn't know in his lifetime." End quote. For Levine's characters, death is a tormenting shadow that hangs over life, and only in death can there be happiness and release. Now in scene 3, armed soldiers come on the stage, they block the entrances to the room, and a military commander and his wife enter the stage. The commander's wife, quote, "Dead? Really? Good God Almighty, the first corpse in my life. So what they talk about so much happens." And she approaches the corpse to study it. Throughout all of Levine's writing, human beings are cruel and abusive, but they're never evil. For Levine, cruelty is not a characteristic of evil people. It's a permanent, universal part of the human condition. Human beings, for Levine, are cruel by definition. Whenever one person or a group of people wield power over another person or a group of people, the powerful people will invariably dehumanize the powerless people and abuse them. And if the roles were reversed, and if the powerless suddenly became powerful over a different group, the people that were previously abused would now become the abusers. If you're interested in understanding this view from a psychological perspective, in reading some psychological justification for that view, I suggest reading about the Stanford Prison Experiment. But the point is that the general's wife here is not just a mindless sadist. From her perspective, this violence is not much different from the violence of a violent movie, or a violent video game, or an extremely violent play like this one. And her reaction, this kind of awe and wonder and disbelief, is a reaction that many normal people might feel when they're enjoying some kind of violent entertainment. In this way, I think the general's wife is somewhat representative of Levine's audience. An audience which is being shocked, but also maybe taking a perverse enjoyment from the violence going on stage. Skipping now some introduction to these two characters, the commander and his wife, we jump to scene 4, where we again notice the mother and the father and the sleeping child who have been on the stage all this time. The commander to the pursued people, quote, "Take nothing with you. Come with us." One of the women in the crowd of pursued people, "They'll kill us all." Then the mother speaks to the commander directly. "We cannot go. Our child is sleeping. You must not wake him. He's a child. He has to sleep at night. He's dreaming. They say at night they grow. At night their personality is shaped. Their soul is opened. My son especially needs his sleep. He was sick all winter. He's sensitive. Any little wind is liable to harm his development." Now skipping some of the dialogue here between the mother and commander, the commander echoes back some of what the mother has been saying. "Above all, you must not wake the child. That's clear. The child. But how can he go on sleeping if we have to go?" One of the women in the crowd of people being pursued, "They'll kill us all." the commander, shh, softly, gently, will peel his sleep from him like the wrapping of an expensive gift. Will transform the world to an extension of his dream. Then to the soldiers, hide your rifles behind your back. Take off your helmets. To the mother, wake him up. The clowns have come to town. End quote. And this is an incredible moment in the play, and it offers an amazing challenge and an amazing opportunity for anyone who is putting on the show. Because at this moment, the tens of soldiers who have been standing on their stage with their guns menacingly quickly transform themselves. They paint their faces, they take off their military garb, and they become clowns and circus performers. And the entire stage is turned into a circus. These characters that moments ago were soldiers are suddenly riding on unicycles, they're juggling, they're walking on their hands. And in this scene, the mother wakes her child. Quote, "My sweet child, get up. See who has come to visit you. A big circus full of clowns and magicians has come to our town. They came to you, my little prince, to amuse you." The child now wakes up. He sees the clowns performing around him, and he speaks, addressing the audience. "I love to get up now and then at night from a deep sleep and discover that everything is in its place, that my father and mother and the room and all the books and toys, everything is there, and life is usual. A smell of fish cooking from the kitchen, and the radio still playing, and the calm spread over my mother's face is stronger than the thicket of dreams. But I especially love surprises. Ha! Surprises, my breath of life. First snow on the tree in the window, or a new toy on the chair, or, for instance, like now, guests for a party, filling all the rooms of the house. And who are the guests? Who? Oh, my soul blooms with pleasure. Circus clowns and magicians who came to our town, bringing lights and colors and the taste of wonderful adventures. Oh, joy that overflows my banks. I have to roll around a bit to calm down. The world is a good and happy place. I recommend it to everyone. To those who are not yet born, hurry up and get born. Don't hesitate. Father, mother, thank you for birth. Thank you, thank you." And the child rushes to his mother and father and kisses them. For me, the following interaction between the commander's wife and the child captures the essence of what this play is about. In the following interaction, the commander's wife explains to the child that the world is not a stable and reliable place. Instead, the world is profoundly unstable. Our happiness and our security is illusory. Underneath the mirage is a different ultimate reality, a reality which is senseless horror. The commander's wife now strokes the child's head and says to him, quote, "Sweet, sweet, too sweet, isn't it? A kind of greasy goodness that slides down your throat until it becomes disgusting. Childhood, I know it. Deep in our heart, we sense that this sweetness isn't really life, that there's something else." She then whispers in his ear, "Nightmares. Perhaps they'll tell us the truth. Remember me? Of course, you've already dreamed of me. Those dreams were right. Everything was in the dreams. And there's one dream you don't wake up from." End quote. So I'm going to skip over a lot of the next scene. It's very horrific. The commander's wife makes the father get on his knees and suck on the barrel of her gun, and she taunts him. Meanwhile, the child is crying, quote, "Father, my big father, get up, father, get up." The commander's wife says to the child, quote, "You said before that you love to wake up in the middle of the night and discover that everything is in its place. But a night comes when nothing is in its place anymore. The world that was solid, child, is melted. It pours out between your fingers, and under your solid bed, the earth quakes." End quote. This image of the ground shaking, of what we thought was solid melting in our hands, is this moment of reckoning with the horrible and torturous aspects of human existence, of infinite vulnerability. Hanoch Levine, as an Israeli, is writing from a political context that is in a perpetual state of high alert. In his lifetime, he lived in a country that fought multiple wars for its existence. And he is the child of Holocaust survivors. And so these brutal and horrific aspects of human existence are especially visible to him. In the midst of this horrible scene where the commander's wife is torturing the father, the mother pushes the child. She says, "Go, beg mercy for your father. You're a child. She'll listen to you." The mother's hysterical. She says, "Beg for mercy. Sing her a song. Your voice must soften her heart." And then the child, struggling to control his voice, sings a song. He sings, "Here comes the sweet summer day. Waiting with joy we are rife. The day is long. The night is far away. But already we start to fret. Will summer be enough for us? Will life?" With this, the commander's wife removes the gun from the father's mouth, and she pulls the child into her arms. She says, quote, "Ah, childhood, childhood, you cannot resist it. My childhood that will never return again." And with that, with the child in her arms, she shoots the father in the face, and he falls and dies. I'm skipping ahead now. Later, the commander says, "Ah, the power of the child to touch the most secret place inside us, as if children were our thinnest, most painful internal tissue, as if there, in childhood, was the reason and was lost." Then to the mother he says, "Go, you're free now. You've bought your lives dearly." The mother collapses on the body of the father, and one of the soldiers approaches her and whispers, "If your life and your child's life are dear to you, go." The mother responds, "I want to say goodbye to my husband." The soldier, "Don't indulge yourself. Saying goodbye is a luxury for another time." The mother, "What kind of a world is this, where there's time to die, but weeping is an indulgence?" And a neighbor from the group of pursued people says to her, "We'll weep again. Happy days will come, and we'll weep to our heart's content about everything." End quote. This idea that in some circumstances, just the opportunity to cry in pain is a luxury is incredibly hard to think about. The mother takes her child by the hand, and she exits with a short monologue about how there was once a time before she knew her husband when she would have been indifferent to him, and she seeks to return to that time. Her final words, quote, "Come, void and abyss and emptiness, and fill my heart." End quote. The final words of Act 1 belong to the commander's wife, who again were forced to humanize. She is staring at the body of the father. Quote, "The second corpse you see isn't the first corpse anymore. Something virginal is lost. The sweet shudder vanished, and the heart is pinched and sad. As in early autumn, the first taste of the grape will never return. Farewell, youth. Summer is gone."